All right, fucking 9 circles off in hell. Number 1 is limbo. It's not even technically hell. It's not inside. It's like outside. And it's where all the fucking pussies go. So it's like, you know, if you didn't pick a side, you're too worried about your own shit on the day-to-day. All right, and then number 2, now you got to go across the river, Styx, and fucking that dude from this Scorp song will take you across, and then now you're actually in hell. Limbo ain't in hell. Because there's a bunch of good motherfuckers in there. They're not all, it's not really like bad people. It's just, you know, wrong place, wrong time type of deal. And so then number 2 is where they send people that were the most extreme fucking thing they ever committed was lust, right? Which basically is it's really like lust is not just about fucking or whatever. It's also it's basically just about compulsion. It's about willpower. Apparently God fucking was like, look, I fucking made y'all's brain, or I don't think they knew about brains back then, or well, maybe they did, but you know what I mean. He was like, I made sure that I fucking gave willpower. So if you're going against that, then you're it's a sin. So, you know, fuck that. And so, and you can lust after all kinds of shit. Fucking be an addict, you know, or whatever. And it's cool how these like they fucking ramp up. It's like a gateway drug, you know. So it starts with lust, and so you can't control your compulsions. You got no willpower. All right, number 3 is what is it? Lust, gluttony, being gluttonous, right? So obviously you think about food immediately, and that is real. But you can, just like with lust, you can be a glutton over anything, and it basically be like God's like, man, I done made all this shit for y'all. I made the angels, you know, and then I was like, I guess I'll be nice and I'll make some other life, and fucking I made the fucking planet and all that shit. I put a bunch of animals and fucking plants have on it, and then Adam was like getting all trying to get, you know, he's trying to fuck or whatever, and then so he's like, and then I made a woman, you know, I created a vagina and all that shit, all for y'all. And so he's like, I know y'all, I also gave you willpower, right? And he made the angels up in heaven is like a heavenly, you know, like environment we made. So he's like, I think it was a lot easier up there, but down here on earth, it's like there's a lot of problems and shit. So basically, like, we're like animals, you know, like, man, they're uncivilized. We're a bunch of fucking savages, basically. So, all right, so what is it? It's gluttony. So God provides everything we need, right? But if you take more than you need, and not just food, it could be anything, right? If you take more than you need, and you know it's more than you need, that's a fucking sin, you know, it's gluttony. So then they send all the gluttons down there at number 3, and then number 4 is what the fuck is it? Number 4 is, oh shit, greed. Yeah. So yeah, fucking you see how they're connected, right? Like, you got the fucking lust, you know, you can't control your compulsions, which leads you to become a glutton, you know, because you can't control yourself, and then it leads you to be greedy. You know, they're all like somewhat related, right? And so like greed, you know, it's like, it's really well understood, but it also has like a lot more deep facets than you would show up on the face. You know, you immediately think that like, oh, greed is about money, and it is, but money, it's really about power, right? And there's lots of different ways to be greedy. You could be like a miser or whatever, or fucking like, you know, be not generous because you're like, oh, he's a greedy, he's a fucking pig or whatever. And but you can also be so hungry and want of some type of power. That's how you motherfuckers start manipulating people and shit. Fucking they use their status, or they use your status against you, right? This is like, you know, basically what happens to minorities in, you know, everywhere. So it's all so greed is like fucking linked in with racism and control, and it's fucked up. So that's number 4. Number 5 is what the fuck is it? 5 is wrath. So wrath is fucking fucked up because it's like, what the fuck even is that? Fucking, you know, I think everybody kind of knows what it is, but it's like the only time you ever use that word is some kind of fucking figure of speech. It means that you're fucking, it basically just means you're an asshole. But wrath is an unfucking controllable, unsatiable feeling of anger. Everybody knows what it's like to be angry, but these motherfuckers that got wrath, it's like, it's not, you know, it's like they're consumed by fucking anger, right? Which can, you know, it keeps stacking up. If you got wrath issues for too long, you're going to be doing some kind of genocide or something, right? But it basically just means you're not nice, you know. You have like these angry and fucking like aggressive anyway, wrath, right? It's fucking punishment. Like fucking, it's not like revenge, you know. Fucking somebody, you know, fucks you over or whatever. You know, it may not be right, but you can feel like, oh, I'm gonna get revenge. But you also have some type of, if you've been like really wronged, you're gonna have a fucking inclination to want to be like made whole again or whatever. So revenge is different. Revenge is justified. Wrath is not justified. You fucking you fucking chastise people just because you're a dick, right? So all right, that's wrath. And then what's that? So that what was that? That's 5. So 6 is 6 is fucking kind of a throwaway one. It's heresy, and which is apparently ain't the same thing as blasphemy, right? Heresy is basically just sinning, is just like breaking any of God's laws and knowing that you're doing it, right? That's why most of those motherfuckers end up in limbo, because it's like, motherfucker, I was fucking died fucking 2,000 years before I even wrote this shit down. But anyway, so yeah, heretics. And habitual heretics, though, like fuck, you can be pious or whatever and you fucking sin, but you know that you did. Nobody's perfect, but habitual heretics. So it's really like fucking motherfuckers are like, ooh, I can fucking commune with the dead, and I'm a psychic, you know, or I'm a mystic. Yeah, that's really what they're talking about. And they got their own building there in hell. It's like this fucking torturous. It's supposed to be like a library, because they're like, oh, I'm so smart. So it's like unlimited knowledge, but they can't. Anyway, it's a fucking lot of poetic justice going on in hell. But anyway, the heretic one is kind of lame. So what is that? That's 6. All right, 7. Okay, so now it's getting good, and this is actually to the point of the fucking story. So 7 is for violence, and so I gotta skip to the other 2. So 8 is fraud, right? Fucking shysters and grifters, fucking corrupt politicians, corrupt fucking members of church, people that, you know, so fraud. And then the deepest one, number 9, is treachery, right? Which is, you know, it's kind of like fraud, but being treacherous means that you turn on the people that may love you, that you're loyal to, that you're, you know, treachery is fucking the worst one, right? Just beating out corrupt politicians and fraud and shit like that. Treachery. So, you know, fucking murdering your friend or fucking betraying people. That's the worst one, right? And to get to the 9th one, to get to the fucking seat of hell, which is apparently the last fucking place you want to be, they can't even sentence you to it. You have to like bring yourself to it, because to get to the very bottom, you have to be so treacherous that your own ego has fucking basically Benedict Arnold your own self, and you didn't even know it. So it's like you can't even get sentenced to it. You belong there. It's fucked. All right, so back to 7, which is actually the whole fucking point. So 7 is fucking violence, right? So these violent motherfuckers that are beyond the wrath, they're beyond the fucking greed. They actually like are violent, right? And not just like fighting in a war. These, you know, motherfuckers like fucking cut cats' heads off and shit, and then murder people. It's, you know, violence, extreme violence. So number 7 is busted off. They got it into 3 tiers, and each one gets deeper. You know, so like depending on what the fuck you did is how, and the deeper you get, apparently the worse the hell is. So anyway, the first one is violence against like humankind. You know, I think it's violence against your neighbor. You know, so just people in general, the species, you know, humankind in general. So if you get any kind of pleasure, or just, you know, you're fucking, you know, unruly, being, you know, violent as fuck to people, that you end up there. And then the next one was even deeper. Fucking is violence against yourself, and it's not like cutting and shit. It's like if you commit suicide. So if you kill yourself on accident or whatever, you have to like decide like, fuck God, and I don't fucking want to be alive. I'm just gonna kill myself. So that's even worse than killing someone else. So you'd be like some fucking Ed Gein motherfucker and above, you know, some dude that fucking was depressed or something. But hey, it is what it is. And then so that's the second one. The third one, and this one has 3 tiers inside of it, so I guess there's technically 6 of them in it. So the third one is violence against God, which that's what blasphemy is, right? Violence against what is it? Violence against nature, the natural flow of things, nature, violence against nature, and then the last one is violence against it's Dante fucking says that it's art, which I suppose that's how he fucking saw it at the time, but it's actually usury, which is that's a real. It still goes on. It's basically a way to it's loan sharking. You know, it's like if you loan people money, and then you have like real high interest, or it's loan sharking. And so apparently, according to the fucking God, loan sharking's real bad. But Dante said, and Dante was a fucking hardcore fucking real deal poet. You know, he wasn't no joke. So he's like, man, all these motherfuckers I know, they're a bunch of fucking actors and poets and fucking philosophers and fucking they like they fucking ain't got no money. They fucking get treated like shit all the fucking time. And so back then, you gotta borrow money, and fucking so I guess like that part of society, the arts were like real taken advantage of by all these fucking usurers. And it would lead them to fucking like these destructive paths and become alcoholics, fucking want to kill themselves, shit like that. So apparently it's real bad. But so Dante considers it to be also a crime against art, but it's like a crime against like the spirit, like you're like inspiration, and which is a gift from God, So, all right. So the whole fucking point is the crime against violence against nature, right? So it's like, what the fuck is that? Like being a glutton, you could go out there and fucking like, I'm gonna go fishing, man. I'm gonna keep every fish I can. I'm gonna catch a fucking 100 fish, throw them on the dock. That's a form of gluttony, or you take more than you need, and for whatever reason. But no, that's not what they're talking about. Apparently, the crime against nature, it's buggery. It's for buggerers. So any type of fucking unnatural. Any type of fucking sexual behavior that doesn't lead to procreation, right? This is fucking, it's unnatural. Crimes against nature. Butt fucking, throat coat, all that shit. And so, jacking off even, I mean, technically. Alright, so that's fucking, that's known to these, God already, I mean, that's close to the very bottom of hell, so they know you ain't supposed to be doing that shit. The angels fucking know. So anyway, fucking God is like, fuck, man. He made those angels, like I was saying, he made them up there in heaven. So he's like, man, they just get it. The angels just get it. I don't know why. I guess they're heavenly, they're divine, but they just get it. I ain't got to explain this fucking shit to them. Well, they don't have shit to tell you either. But anyway, but he's like, I ain't got to explain it to them, man. They just get it. But I made these motherfuckers down here, and they're fucking constantly shooting themselves in the fucking foot. It's like they fought off all the fucking tigers and bears and shit like that, and fucking, but it's like constantly, man, these motherfuckers got they can't get their fucking shit together. It's fucking like, what the fuck is wrong with you? So God gets pissed, and so he's like, well, maybe it's my fault. He's like, I must have fucked up when I was making them. I didn't realize like how he's like how easily corrupted they could be. His fucking hell's filling up, and so he's like, I gotta fucking do something. So he's like, God's like, all right, look, I guess I'm gonna have to fucking write this fucking shit down. So he comes up with the fucking rule, the 10 Commandments, fucking rules, and he's like, man, I know you guys are stupid. You're basically just like prone to be a fuck up. So he's like, I'm gonna fucking write it down. I'm gonna send it down, and then it's not suggestions. He's like, these are commandments. That is like, I must have fucked up designing y'all. So if y'all don't follow this shit, you're gonna fucking, it's bad. It's not gonna be good. It's like, I'm trying to help you motherfuckers, right? So he gets with Moses, so Moses, like, fucking, he's a slave. The fucking Egyptians were gonna enslaving all these Jews. So God appears to fucking Moses, and he's like, I fucking need you to handle some shit. And Moses is like, oh, dude, he's like, I fucking got a lot of problems, And he's like, yeah, but this is why I'm choosing you, because by doing this, you're gonna save the fucking mankind. You can also save all your fucking buddies' slaves and shit. So after Exodus aside, he gives fucking Moses commandments, fucking chips into some rocks and shit, and he's like, look, I'm not, this, like I said, these are commandments, so just pass it around. This is important. I'm charging you with this, man. And he's like, the fate of fucking your soul and fucking mankind is in the balance, So Moses is like, all right, and plus he said that he's going to help us get free from these Egyptians, and we don't have to be slaves no more. And so anyway, he sends the commandments down. Fucking Moses was like pretty known dude amongst his fucking, I guess his crew, whatever, his society. It starts getting around, you know, and people are like, oh yeah, this makes sense. You know, a lot of those rules are like kind of common sense, you know, it's like, oh yeah. So, but of course, there's a bunch of motherfuckers like, what the fuck that, dude? Like, what are you talking, what? It's like some motherfucking old dude came down with some fucking rocks and some fucking shit saying that I can't do what the fuck I want to do. It's like, I ain't gonna wear no mask or the same kind of shit. And, so yeah, so there's a lot of that. There's like, man, fuck that, dude. I don't give a fuck about. I don't know who this fucking Moses guy is, dude. I ain't trying to have nobody tell me what to do. You know, a lot of them were probably not even religious at all, or pagans or whatever the fuck. And so they kind of like was a fucking split. You know, it was like these motherfuckers. It was, I guess, a form of blasphemy. You're like, fuck Moses, fuck the fucking fuck the commandments. That's, you know, you're being blasphemous, or whatever. So that's gonna get you on. Shit, which one was blasphemy? Oh yeah, that's violence against God. That's the fucking 7th level. That's fucking close to the bottom. And so anyway, a lot of these like-minded motherfuckers that were like, dude, I ain't trying to fucking have some fucking dude tell me what the fuck I can and cannot do. I'm fucking all about doing what I want, you know? So they kind of like started setting up their own shit and, you know, hanging out with like-minded people, and then and they're like, all like, oh dude, fuck the commandment shit, dude. Fucking that shit's bullshit. Over time, more and more motherfuckers start coming out, you know, and fucking, it was like, at first, they're like, oh, dude, it's all about fucking, dude, freedom out here, dude. Like, we don't fucking judge you for nothing, man. Like, and then more and more people, it gets bigger and bigger, more time goes by, and then, you know, eventually, they end up with with Sodom and Gomorrah. That's what I'm talking. That's the name of the fucking town, right? It's Buggerers, you know, the Sodomites, right? So over time, these motherfuckers living with no rules, right? They're like, we don't need the commandments. And of course, you know, God was like, all right, you know, we'll see how this is going to fucking work out, I guess. And sure enough, over time, you live in all debaucherous and shit. It just gets worse and worse, and it seeps into you, apparently, with having no rules, no boundaries, and you want to challenge the limits of what's acceptable. You know, over time, it's like, God damn, dude, these motherfuckers are fucking fucked up now. And so God is like, dude, I put the commandments down a while back. These motherfuckers already said they don't care, but at this point they've made it obvious that they ain't, and I think that they're corrupted. Like these, you know, this is getting a little out of hand, you know, and now it's this huge fucking city, and it's all kinds of fucking debauchery. It's about sodomites, you know. These guys are fucking, you know, just doing whatever the fuck they want, but also includes like violence and shit. It's a bunch of rapists now. It started out as like a free love nudist fucking camp, and then it's just like, hey dude, we're just gonna rape everybody. And so God's like, all right, so I've had enough, man. He's like, because the town's so big now that it's like, it's starting to spread. Like this fucking people that live here have become so fucking detached, so depraved that it's spreading it. These fucking people are stupid, and they're trapping these. You know, it's like we got to do something. He's like, yeah, I sent the commandments down for this exact fucking reason. This is why I did it. They didn't want to listen, and now I'm gonna have to save them from themselves, which means I'm gonna fucking kill them all. So he's gonna cull. He decides. He's like, man, we're gonna have to cull it. We gotta wipe it out. And he's like, fucking butt fucking. It stops now. Fucking all that shit. I've had enough. No more butt fucking. No more fucking animals. Like, you know. It stops now, dude. We're gonna settle it. And so God is like, all right. He calls like 2 angels up. He's like a bunch of angels up there hanging around. They're not like real special ones. Can't remember their names or anything. He's like, all right, dudes, look, I need to get some of my eyes on the ground, because it's happening. It's like, the city's, you know, it's like, I've had enough. We're gonna cull it. But why don't you guys go down there and take a look around, and, you know, just, you know, I don't know. He's just like, I need some eyes on the fucking ground. And so he's like, and maybe there might be some fucking people in there that maybe we can get out, that don't need to necessarily, or just they are by happenstance or wherever the fuck it might be. So the angels are all right, and so God sends them down as, you know, messengers from God. And they're fucking angels, right? But they, of course, the angels always come down. They're always it's always a secret. You know, they always wear like disguise. You know, I don't know why it's like such a danger to be found. I guess it's probably because they're not real that it's always was a secret. But anyway, So he sends these two angels down, and so angels have like, they can sense like good and evil. I guess people can too, but they can like smell it. It's like a sense that they have, so they can sense the presence of like real evil and demons and shit like that. And so he's like, I'm gonna send y'all down there. You put your fucking your senses on and see if you're picking up any vibes for some motherfuckers that maybe we should get out of there. Maybe at least try to do the right thing. So, all right, we're going down there to try to find a dude or whatever. So they come down, and they're all dressed up as, like, they're supposed to be, like, travelers, like, spice traders or some shit. And, you know, they're, like, kind of, like, poor. You know, they're supposed to be inconspicuous nobodies. So they get down, and they fucking automatically, like, okay, we sense that there's this guy who's got a connection with God. Let's go hit him up, see what's up. That's why we get out here. So it's this guy named Lot, and he's, like, fucking Abraham from, you know, his nephew or something. He's like an old school Bible guy. He's got connections directly to a bunch of Bible, in the old Bible, not the Jesus one. It's like the old shit. He's just some dude. He's like a Bible celebrity. And so anyway, his name is Lot, and fucking he lives in his fucking shithole town of fucking Sodom and Gomorrah. He's like, you know, it's like the worst place you could live at this point. It was like probably like, oh, this is cool like 40 years ago. Now it's fucked. And so he lives like out on the skirts because it's so dangerous in the city, like downtown. These motherfuckers out there, like it's parties and orgies like every time, all the time, and not like fucking cool with it. Like it's like the type of shit we're like, man, I'm gonna find somebody on Craigslist and have them come and you know, cut my dick off and feed it to me and slit my throat because that's how I get off. It's like shit like that going on. A lot of rape, you know, butt fucking animals and stuff like that. And so anyway, so Lot is like, he lives kind of on the outskirts because he's just like, I didn't choose to fucking live here. The city came up around me, man. I used to be a farmer and shit. And he's like a fucking, you know, he's just real poor, you know, and but he's like super, he's pious and he's devout and all that kind of shit. He takes God real serious, you know. And so the angels snipped him out because of that reason, and they're like, okay. And so they go find him, and of course they're fucking in incognito or whatever. So they come up and they come up to his house, and they're like, sir, you know, fucking we're like travelers from blah 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 blah, and we're trying to get to blah blah, and we haven't had any rest, and we haven't had any food, and blah. And so immediately like fucking Lot starts talking to him about, you know, what God would want him to do, and they both realize that they're godly people. So, you know, Lot's like, oh, he's like, come on, guys. He's like, fucking, it would be a sin for me to not help you. He's like, the most important thing in my life right now is fucking getting you guys through tonight and helping you. So of course, then the angels are like kind of looking at each other, like, yeah, we figured, you know, they're kind of testing him, but like, yeah, this is what we figured was gonna happen. So Lot brings them up in. He's got this fucking shithole fucking shack he lives in. And he lives like in, the whole town's a shithole, but he lives like, you know, he's fucking living in a fucking shack. So all of his neighbors live in fucking shacks too. So it's not the best neighborhood. So anyway, these angels fucking come in, and he's like, come in. He's like, let me feed you. And they're like, oh, thank you so much. You know, we've been out in the desert and we can't eat shit. And Lot ain't even got no food. He's eating like fucking like unmilled grains. And can't even, you know, all they can eat is bread. You know, bread's good, but like that's all the food they have. They have bread, and then they make this like fucking kind of old school beer out of wheat, and that's their food. That's what they fucking eat. You can't grow fucking plums out in the desert and shit. These motherfuckers eat bread and beer. That's like that's all they fucking eat. But fucking Lot, he can't even make fucking beer. He's like, because he talks about how he has to drink all this dirty water. Anyway, he's poor as fuck, but he's got God on it. You know, he's on the side of God, so he's fed by his fucking spirituality. And the angels once again are like, all right, that's what's up. So, and this is where the story kind of gets fucked up. So I was talking about the angels can sense like good and evil, you know, and so they go into his house, right? And they're getting a sense of like, you know, this like they're sensing this corruption, or, you know, come in his house, you know. And so they're like, man, we need to help this guy because we can sense from him that he's legit. And then the angels figured out, they're like, oh, dude, he's got a bunch of fucking chicks he lives with. So Lot he's got a wife, and he has, it's like 3 or 4 daughters. I can't remember. He's got like 3 or 4 daughters, and they fucking live up like on top of the shack in like a loft, and they're all fucking they're like turning like 11 and 12, getting their periods and shit, and titties are coming out, and so the angels are like, oh dude, this is bad. I mean, they're already living in Sodom and Gomorrah, so the odds are stacked that they're gonna turn out bad. But he's like, man, they're fucking getting their periods. They're gonna fucking turn into big sluts and start fucking everybody like real soon. We need to get this dude out of here. So they're sensing up this evil coming from his daughters, and they're like, man, feel bad that fucking Lot has to live with all these fucking whores. And so Lot's like, hey, he calls his wife, and I don't know what the fuck she was doing. It's a tiny fucking house, and her name's like Abu or something. And she's old. This motherfucker's old. I don't know how old he is. But like, he's got a big gray beard, So he's not. It's not like he's in his 30s. It's like his old lady wife. Somehow he's got fucking 10, 11-year-old kids. I don't know. Anyway, he calls his fucking wife. He's like, hey, get in here. I got these dudes showed up. They're travelers from blah blah blah, and they're fucking hungry. And do we have bread? And he's like, I know we ain't got any beer anymore, but can you please fucking make us some bread? And he's like, these are our guests, And she's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry. I was like, I'll bring it right out. So she's in there getting the bread ready, and the angels are sitting there talking to him, whatever. So she brings the bread out, and there's only a little bit. Like, it's not like a big ass loaf. It's like this small, like what you'd get on like one like small sandwich. You know what I mean? Like from fucking Schlotzsky's or something. That's all they got for everybody. And Lot's like, he's like, no, I don't. He's like, I'm an old man. He's like, don't worry about me. I'm going to eat this unmilled fucking grain. He's eating fucking weed he picked out of grain. He's like, y'all eat it. And so the angels are like, oh, thank you so much. Once again, fucking Lot has proven he's a fucking solid dude. And the fucked up part is the angels don't even need to fucking eat. This motherfucker is like starving to death, and they're eating this fucking one piece of bread. They don't even need to eat. They fucking don't have intestines and shit. They get like their sustenance from God and being in heaven. If they stay out too long, they start getting sick and shit. So anyway, the fucking angels take a bite of the bread, and they're like, oh my God. They're like, this bread is fucking gross. Tastes like shit. And fucking Lot's like, he's like, what? He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, my wife fucking knows how to make bread. Like, fucking she makes bread fucking all the goddamn time. It's all she does. And they're like, this bread is, something's gone wrong with it. So Lot fucking takes a bite of it, and he's like, oh, they're right. This bread is fucking gross. And he's like, what the fuck happened with the bread? And then she's like, oh, I'm sorry, but, the fucking coffer's all dry. We live in this shack, in fucking Sodom and Gomorrah. And we ran out of salt, With salt, you can get salt from fucking side. You get it out of rocks, back then. So you could just go dig it up out of the ground. And so he's like, "What do you fuck you mean we're out of salt? We can't have bread without salt." And she's like, "I'm sorry, we ran out of salt." And he's like, "It's your job to collect the fucking salt. We didn't run out of salt. You didn't go get the fucking salt, and now we can't eat." So she's like, "I'm sorry." So the angels get pissed off. Lot gets fucking pissed off. And this whole time, the 4 girls are like it's like fucking like early in the evening, like 5 or 6. The 4 girls just laying on their little loft, fucking straw and shit, just watching this shit. Watching these angels eat all the only bread they had left. Anyway, so he's like, well, what the fuck are you going to do about it? He's like, we got to fucking eat something. And she's like, I don't know. And he's like, fucking go get some goddamn salt. I don't know how many times I got to fucking tell you. She keeps saying, I don't know what to do. He's like, I'm telling you, go get salt. So she's like, okay. So she goes outside, and she's like, I guess I'll just go maybe ask one of the neighbors for some salt, My neighbor's one of the sodomites. I'll go ask him for some salt. So she walks down this fucking shithole fucking neighborhood, knocks on this fucking another shack, It's like, she's like a miserly fucking old lady. She ain't, anyway. So she knocks on the fucking door, and then sure enough, it's like 4 dudes. They come to the door, and they're like, hey, who's this? They're like, look what we got here. And she's like, oh, I need to borrow some salt because I fucking ain't got no salt left. And they're like, fuck that, man. And they start talking amongst themselves, like, in the doorway. And they're like, you know what, dudes? I think we should fucking rape this bitch. And she overhears them saying that because they were going to give her some salt, right? They're going to lower, and they're like, nah, dude, let's let's just slam this bitch. And so she overhears, and so she makes she never comes inside. She makes a fucking break for it, right? She runs back home. Lot's still at the table with the fucking two angels who are still incognito. But sure enough, these fucking dudes are like, oh, dude, she's running off. It's like, God damn it, we got to go get her now. And so, and it's like their fucking neighbor. You know, they live, and it's not far. So she runs back. She comes fucking clamoring on the fucking shack door. And these dudes are right behind her. You know, like they fucking just chased her right over there. And they're like, dude, fucking be still so we can rape you, you know? And so the fucking Lot and the angels hear a commotion, like, oh, thank God this fucking went and got the salt. And they're like, wait a minute, something's going on. So they come out there, and the two angels are still in, you know, and Lot don't even know. They just regular dudes. And so they come out front, and his wife's up there, oh, she's scared, you know, and he got these four dudes that are like, hey, what, you know, they're fucking saying shit to her. So Lot and the angels come out like, yo, what's the problem, dudes? And it's like, hey, man, is you fucking bitch showed up over at our fucking house, has my salt, and we're thinking we're all gonna fucking like just rape her, you know. And she was already over there, you know. And so Lot's like, he's like, so he asks, he's like, is this true? And she's like, well, yeah, I mean, pretty much. It's like I went over for salt, and then they tried to rape me. And he's like, guys, he's like, come on, he's like, I don't know what to tell you, but like. He's like, she obviously doesn't want to get gang raped by you fucking creeps. And he's like, don't rape my wife if you can help it, you know. He's like, please. And then, so Lot's talking, and these fucking four dudes are just not even listening. You know, they got rape on the brain, trying to get a nut. And so they start looking at the two angels who are standing there and just kind of observing it. Angels are real good looking. They're like elves, you know. And so these are guy angels, but they are all good looking. And so, but even though they can't even fuck. But so anyway, these dudes, you know, are looking at the angels, they're looking at this old bitch, and then they're like, you know what, man? Look, okay, we won't fucking rape your wife. We kind of want to fuck you two bros here, you know? And so the angels, of course, are like, oh great, here we fucking go. I knew it was only a matter of time. I heard shit about it. And he's like, what? Lot's like, what? He's like, yeah, dude. He's like, we want to fuck these dudes. And he's like, no. He's like, you don't understand. These are my guests, guys. He's like, they're travelers. They're not from here. They're like, they're my guests. Like, I've offered to shelter them. They're like, I'm in charge of them. He's like, come on, dudes. Don't fucking rape my friends or whatever. And they're like, all right, man. Well, what the fuck you gonna do about it? And then he's like, oh shit. So he's like, all right, dudes, look. He's like, I got 4 daughters. They're fucking right here. That's 3 or 4. I got 4 daughters. They're all like 11 and 12. They fucking got their periods and shit, and they're ready to roll. And they're all virgins, which are real hard to come across in fucking Sodom and Gomorrah. It's like, fuck my daughters instead, and please don't fuck my guests, my friends. And they're like, nah, dude, fuck that. And he's like, we fucked so many little girls. Like, we can't fucking get off on that, dude. We want to fuck. These motherfuckers they're the hottest thing we've ever seen. We want to fuck them. And he's like, no. He's like, you have to fuck my daughters. And they're like, okay, you want us to fuck your daughters then? And he's like, okay, well then, I'll tell you what. If you don't let us fuck your fucking friends here, we'll fuck your daughters, and we're going to fucking make it even worse on them. Just because now you pissed us off, right? So they're gonna fucking hate fuck them. And so at this point, Lot's like, somebody's got to fucking stand up and do something. So the angels fucking reveal themselves, and they're like, okay, look, we're gonna settle this shit. The fucking shit's going down in the morning anyway. So the angels fucking bust out. They fucking drop their robes, and they fucking do some kind of shit and they blind these motherfuckers. All 4 of these fucking sodomites, rapists. And they make them go blind. They got their dicks in their hands and they're fucking, ready to rape, but they cause them to go blind. That's why they say if you jack off, you go blind. And so anyway, and they're like, whoa, the fuck, can't see shit. And then, of course, at this point, fucking Lot's on the ground. Like, he's like fucking worshiping these. He's in the presence of an angel. It's the best thing that's ever happened to him. And they're like, all right, dude, look, jig's up. We're not the dudes we said we were. we're blah 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 we're from heaven, dude, and God sent us down here to find some motherfuckers like you, and just to, see if, whatever. That's why we're here. We're messengers from God. We're here to tell you that fucking this shit is going down. God is fucking fed up with all the fucking bullshit that's going on. Butt fucking's out. No more fucking animals. Fucking, they never say anything about raping, but it's, you can't fucking, you can't throat fuck somebody. You can't rape, throat fuck somebody. That's against the goddamn rules. And so, fucking, of course, fucking Lot's like, oh, fucking sweet, he's like, God's got my back and shit. And then we're like, well, we're not so goddamn sure if you've got his back, because we overheard your fucking daughters while these dudes are out here fucking getting all horned up, ready to rape your goddamn wife and fuck us too. Your daughters overheard that you offered him, you just go fuck my fucking virgin daughters. And they're such big fucking whores that they're all like, oh, dude, you hear that? Oh, these sodomites gonna fuck the shit out of us. They're all stoked on it because they're so fucking dirty little 11-year-old girls, sluts, And so the angels kind of call him out, and he's like, all I ever do is fucking pray, and all I do is blah blah blah, and my fucking bitch wife is always forgetting the goddamn salt, and she fucking is from here. I'm not from here. She's fucking from here. And they're like, well, that's what we thought, dude. It's like, we're just, just letting you know, just making, you might want to fucking move on, dude. But that's besides the point. If you got about fucking 6 hours and fucking God is about to fucking raise the goddamn city with some God shit. It's like that movie Wishmaster where it's fucking, it's going down, dude. And these motherfuckers, everyone is going to die. And if you can get your fucking dumbass wife and your fucking slut daughters out of here, we're confident that you are such a great man that you can fucking, you're not fucking sex, you fucking not allowed to fucking have sex. And you need to teach him. He's like, it's on you, dude. You're the fucking man. You own all these bitches. So it's on you. So, but we think that you are fucking worthy. And so take him with you. Take him with you and get him out of here. Get yourself out of here. And don't fucking come back. They make a big thing. Don't fucking come back. I don't care if you forget anything. Doesn't matter what it is. It's when you leave the fucking house, don't come back. Don't even fucking look back. So he's like, all right, well, how much time we got? And he's like, you got about, I don't know, 3 hours or something. It's fucking happening real soon. So, all right, so they start hauling ass. They start packing all their shit up. They're going to have to be going through the desert and shit, getting the fucking girls together. And they're like, oh, we want to, we don't want to leave, And the angels are like, yeah, I told you, dude. And so he gets all these bitches with him. He gets like some fucking, I guess, some unmilled grain, take with him some water or something. And they start fucking hauling ass. And he's like, the angels tell me, it doesn't matter where you go. You're going to the desert. Fucking leave, but God will fucking see after you. And he's like, oh yeah, I know that's true. And so they fucking haul ass. They start taking off, fucking busting. And they pack for a while. So as they're getting out, the fucking calling starts happening. So they're fucking, they don't want to be there even more now because everybody's fucking skin is fucking, falling off. And if it's like crazy fucking God shit happening. And, but the fucking wife, as she's fucking running, she takes a look back and she sees the city, and they see that as a sign of the corruption has gotten to them or whatever. If they're not able to see that this is the most ungodly fucking place in the world, to look back is a fucking crime against God, right? Blasphemy. So you know what these motherfuckers did? They fucking... And the angels ain't even around no more. They're like, we're watching. They got, I guess maybe they're omnipresent too. I don't fucking know. But they're like, we're going to be watching y'all. We told you to get the fuck out. We told you, don't look back. The wife fucking, and it's an old fucking woman, by the way. Like, they've probably been married for like 40 fucking years. She looks back, takes a glance back at the city. I'm sure it's a spectacle too. There's all kinds of fucking crazy shit going on. These motherfuckers turned her into a fucking pillar of salt. Like a big rock deposit of salt. Like she was a troll out in the fucking daytime. So Lot's like, it's like, yeah, I guess the angels were right. She's the fucking one that didn't go and get the salt. She's the fucking one that went down to get the fucking salt, brought the rapists over. She's the one that fucking probably caused my daughters to all be a bunch of skanks. And it's like, dude, fucking bitch ain't gonna forget about the fucking salt now.